Monopoly. Trying to think about how to start with this classic. Here's one for you, because I can think of a lot of interesting things to say. It's been my experience that the people I really enjoy gaming with are people who kind of enjoy Monopoly. They might enjoy all kinds of other things. They're usually war gamers, but not always. The non-war gamers who are willing to play Monopoly and enjoy it and have fun are also willing to maybe try things that are closer to a war game and have fun. The people who I've met who seem to really say, I don't like Monopoly, they tend to be people with pretty narrow tastes. People that I'm just not going to get along with my gaming tastes. As, you know, I mean, I might be fine with you in person, whatever, we might enjoy a couple of games, but if we were in a gaming group together, there would immediately be conflict. Not because I want to play Monopoly all that much. I don't think it's that great a game. I think it's fun, though. But the fact that they'd exclude it from their willingness to play, something that's so deeply ingrained in the culture. In fact, modern board gaming, whatever else it is so derived from Monopoly over the long run. The whole concept of commercial board gaming. Sure, there were some children's games, and Monopoly was not meant as a children's game in the least. There were some children's games that came out before it. But I don't think there were many adult board games. Games like the same kind of concept that we have with the modern Euro, for example, that are meant for just, not the heavier side, but for just about everyone to be able to play and enjoy and understand. So, why do people hate Monopoly so much? Why do the Eurogamers in particular hate it so much? It is completely anathema, probably. I can't speak in broad terms here, even though I like to, because, you know, I mean, I play Euro games. Am I a Euro gamer? No, but a lot of the Euro gamers are looking for a particular experience that is different from Monopoly. What they're looking for is a faster game that has more calculation, more puzzle solving, more decisions of importance in each cycle of time. And that's, you know, I mean, that's the opposite of Monopoly, like I said. What does Monopoly give you? Well, first of all, it gives you the roll and move. A lot of luck. Okay. There are some popular luck-based games. But what's so great about luck and adding that to a game in this sort of sense is people who maybe aren't terribly good have things to hope for. You know, my mom is like, oh, come on, 7! Oh, you know? And when they hit what they need to hit on a roll, or when somebody lands on them, they're just so happy that adds a lot of enjoyment in a way that someone like me doesn't really understand and maybe feels a little embarrassed to be around, but that makes the game pleasant for them to put all that into it, I guess. Or that is part of their pleasure. Okay, what else is there? There are some decisions. They're limited. For example, how much cash to keep on hand? How much risk can you bear at a given time? How much do you need to build? If you could do the damage that you need without spending all your cash, well, just keep your cash. On the other hand, how much risk are you looking at in the near future on the board? And what are you going to be doing in little decisions like that? Certainly far more than most of the Monopoly clone games. Things like Easy Money, I'm trying to think what else. Well, things that came out later that were more children's games. Things like Life that had no decisions in them whatsoever. You know, there are a lot of games where you don't have those kind of choices to make in there. Okay. But there are other good games that cover that kind of feel. For example, well, good being subjective, of course. For example, I covered Fast Food Franchise, and I don't think you can see that. It's down near the floor, by Tim Jim, which is sort of a combination of Monopoly and Acquire. You have a roll and move mechanism, but you're building territory on the board. And it's a neat idea. And it certainly includes those, hey, how much can I afford to risk at this point and everything. Those Euro-like decisions, and it beats out Monopoly on them entirely. Because you have this cool kind of territorial positioning at the same time that you're trying to choose, whether or not you can spend your money. In Monopoly, the only thing you have with there is the limitation on the number of houses and hotels, which seldom comes into play as a major factor in the game, but sometimes it can be a minor factor. You also have, the mortgaging and non-mortgaging. But the only thing outside of the just cash to risk or investment to risk type proposal that this presents is with the houses and hotels. The Tim Jim game presents several interesting choices there, including, watch my video on that. And I really kind of rant on that poor game. It's a good game, but it ain't Monopoly. Okay, and it doesn't do what Monopoly does. But a Eurogamer who plays it might say, this is kind of a, better version of Monopoly. It's a little shorter, and I've got more decisions. It meets the things that I want. But they don't realize what they're missing in Monopoly. And what is that? Well, I'm going to say negotiation. Okay. Well, but lots of Euros have negotiation. You got trades and settlers. Yes, but there is no game, not even diplomacy. There may be one. I'm thinking the Cities game by Psychology Today. But seriously, when I think through all the games that I've owned, played, whatever, through all the years, there is not a single game that matches the big deal of Monopoly. Every other game, Monopoly, it allows you to make a trade that is critical, or several of them, but they're critical, at least a few in the game, are absolutely critical to the entire game. You mess those up, you make a bad decision on those, you're screwed. But the decisions are easy to make. It's fairly easy to see, yes, this is a good deal for both of us, but wait a minute, you're getting a little more out of this. Or wait a minute, maybe I can portray it so you're getting a little more so that I'll be the one getting a little more. That's why it's a negotiation game. It comes down to that. Now, like I said, there are other negotiation games. You've got Civilization, you've got Settlers of Catan. You've got these games where you're trading things all the time. Lots and lots of those short cycle little trading decisions to make, right? That's got to be better. Yeah, not really. Here's why. This one decision is of such significant importance, or the couple of key decisions that you make in this game, that you've got to get them right. Okay? You screw up on a trade in Settlers of Catan, it may cost you the game, but it's unlikely to. Chances are you're going to be able to point at the guy who you benefited and say, oh look, he's in the lead. Let's demand better deals from him from now on. Yeah, you don't get that choice in Monopoly. You screw up, it's over. He's got the bonus on you. Now, luck or other factors may turn that around, but this is the magical thing in Monopoly. Now, you know, it may not be a popular thing. You don't see any other games with it, you know, but it had to be. And the reason it had to be is the world's most popular board game. I mean, this thing just sold so much. If it could have been improved easily for what it does, it would have been. It would have been by the clones. The clones never had an idea of what Monopoly was really about, I think. There's a reason this game has the grip on the world that it has for so many years. Now, nowadays, we lead a different life than we did back when Monopoly came out. In fact, even when I was young, Monopoly seemed a little long. Life had started cycling more and more rapidly. People were less willing to spend the time on something. And clearly, you know, with the increase of computers, cell phones, this, that, and the other, Monopoly's more and more drifting into that as a general family thing, less in touch with what the family's like. Because the family's running all over the place now. They're not sitting down, you know, after a 9 to 5 day with 1 hour lunch break by one person working in the whole household. Okay, maybe not in 32. In 32, it was a day where nobody worked because there weren't no work. Yeah. So, nowadays, many people who want to get ahead in a job, in a good job, a well-paying job, are forced, first of all, you don't get paid for lunch anymore. Secondly, you may have to commute a significant distance. That was less the case in that time before we had this exodus from the cities. I always try to live within walking distance of work, or move work into my apartment. Okay, where am I? Children's lives are scheduled. First of all, they have way more time that they're forced to be in school nowadays, but also all kind of programmed activities, because we're afraid that our children can't play in the street, because somebody will kidnap them and lock them away for 10 years and abuse them or whatever. I mean, look, you know, did that stuff used to happen? Have we just gotten so perverse? Is our society just totally wrecked? And what is wrecking it? Is it being wrecked by the pace of change, if it's being wrecked? Or is it just wrecking for other reasons coincidental to that? Like, I don't know, the number of unwed parents or something like that. I don't know. Certainly these things all are tied together, though. You know, when you've got to have two people working in order to make a daily living. Or if you're not able to get one of those jobs where you have to maybe put in extra hours at home all the time and be available on buzz on your phone for whenever some call comes in for a technical emergency. When you're not in that position, which so many jobs are now. I mean, it used to be maybe 1 or 2 people in a town had a kind of job, a couple of doctors, a couple of really important people who absolutely, they were necessary to make the decision in splits, you know, in real time, essentially. But nowadays, everything's that way. Everything in the sort of high-paying jobs sector. Hey, we got a contract on the line, you know, I just cut the deal. We can get it in if we sign it in 20 minutes, but I don't know otherwise. All right, I got to give up dinner, you know. Oh, servers have crashed. What do I do, bud? I got to talk you through it. Okay, well, what's the alternative? What's the more relaxing kind of low-paying job? What do you got, your McDonald's? Yeah, right. You got to work 16 hours a day, 2 jobs to be able to even survive off that crap. Come on. You know? And even so, wealth is drifting upwards into the investment classes as the workers are being pressed more and more. We're actually in a period which isn't too far from that which immediately preceded monopoly in terms of, you know, the Gilded Age and preparing for probably, you know, you think this last crash was a big deal, preparing for what may be the biggest crash we've ever seen. But all the same, there have been these big changes. And I think those big changes are the thing that separates today from then in terms of being able to appreciate it. Spending 2 hours with the family playing a board game, you know, kind of mindless in a lot of ways, but with a key strategy element. I mean, one where your best players of Monopoly, okay, strategy may be the wrong word, but let's include negotiation strategy. The best players of Monopoly walk away with a victory again and again and again. It's got nothing to do with being able to figure out probabilities or risk management. It's got to do with cutting the big deal right. And that's a rare skill. Okay? I mean, most Euro games and a lot of war games strike me as more of the kind of game that an accountant would be good at. And I'm not talking about they're doing double entry or anything like that. I'm talking about they're doing some addition and some analysis. Monopoly is about the guy sitting there with his scotch in his hand and a cigar and somehow winning over the guy across the table for him that this is a good deal for both of us. And that, no, I'm not getting a better edge than you are. That's a talent, you know, that we pay very, very highly for in this culture and have for a long time. And I think it's probably a useful talent. And Monopoly gives you a taste of that kind of effort, that kind of skill. Now here's the thing. Your common Euro usually has this sort of curve, okay? You first look at it, oh wow, this is new, it's cool, what's up here? You don't understand what's going on, you don't understand the strategies. You play around with it a little bit, you start to get an idea of what those strategies are. If you're fast at learning it, and if it corresponds nicely with your skills, well, maybe within a couple of games you're pretty good at it and you're beating all your friends. A few more games and all your friends have evened it up again because they've all figured out what you figured out a little quicker. But Monopoly ain't about figuring something out, okay? The skill there is such a broad and underlying one of being able to make that negotiation, like diplomacy, like a number of other things. It's very hard to learn to be good at it, okay? The only thing you can learn about Monopoly are your probabilities and what else? Not much, really. You got the probabilities and maybe a little habit towards risk management, what works and what doesn't for you, you know. But that's really, that can actually be derived completely from the probabilities and analyzed perfectly. But you can't learn to negotiate, and especially at that kind of high level that I think Monopoly simulates, well, by playing and losing a few games of it, because you don't see what your opponent's doing. He had you convinced. He sold to you the idea that you're doing the right thing. You're convinced of it. You have learned what he wanted you to learn, not the skills that he's using on you. It's a Jedi mind trick. Other negotiation games, though, do kind of have it, something like diplomacy. But the problem in something like diplomacy is you're not signing that not guaranteed, but that singular deal. Things start looking too good for you in diplomacy, your allies can turn on you. Same with most negotiation games. So yeah, I really think Monopoly brings something that I don't think any other game does. Now, does that make it a 10 or a perfect game or something? No, it doesn't. You know, I don't enjoy Monopoly all that much. I can have some fun with it. It's a terrible solitaire game, by the way. Although I really started to enjoy this one as I got into it. As players started falling off, it got really kind of cool. Cool in the way that on the camera makes things cooler. These lighter games, I really love playing them on the camera for some reason. I don't know. But like more than I do just soloing it, because the story's not very good in Monopoly. There's no, okay, so there's one thing to really blast it on. The story is so unconnected. I mean, I'm walking around a board and where, you know, my rolls and my die rolls and this all affects how much money I'm making in some abstract, weird sort of way. Roll and move is pretty crappy across the board for making a thematic match. it doesn't even work for me in things like Talisman particularly well. And something like this, where the connection between the movement and what's happening, there's nothing there. Clearly that's not where the game is from. So I don't think you're getting this feeling from the actions you're taking, maybe at one point from the money you're handling, that people kind of felt wealthier because of it. I know some people do, but overall, it doesn't really match anything to do with reality. Houses being built and destroyed kind of at will. I mean, even the property to the buildings, none of it makes any sense if you start to think of it. So it is only as a game that you can judge this. And right away, for me, that loses quite a bit, because I like my games to represent some kind of reality, and this doesn't. But within that, I have to give it some added bonus points, just for, what it did to the game community of its time, creating it, basically, and how much has been derived from it in terms of other games, how much influence it's had on commercial games. You may never have had Euros if it hadn't been for this. Who knows? There's just no way to sort of picture a gaming world without Monopoly having been there. What would have held its place? Because something would have had to. And, how would that, if it wasn't like Monopoly, how would that have changed? Just the whole mindset of the hobby in so many ways. And there's something interesting to contemplate there. It is a little long and tedious at times. It feels like too much playtime for what you kind of get out of it. I wish the game could be shorter. I know they've attempted shorter versions. The problem is, I think the magic of that big deal, part of it is tied up in you're investing a decent amount in this game. I'll tell you one thing, Monopoly Deal has nothing to do with Monopoly except theme, in the sense that it doesn't carry any meaning from Monopoly at all. You're playing a completely different game, a completely silly one as far as I'm concerned. Monopoly has a certain stature that it deserves. It deserves it for being the only game that represents that big deal, if nothing else. And then the other thing that I was thinking of, outside of Monopoly itself, when I kind of looked at it, and I don't remember what I said to begin with, but the thing that's been preying on my mind here. Oh yeah, about me not liking to game with people who don't like Monopoly. And that's been, when I think back, the people I most enjoyed gaming with were always people who liked Monopoly. But then I start to think, and I think I'm reaching here, I am the monopoly of the game reviewers. Long, doesn't kind of get to the point. The points are kind of scattered about with these long waits for something to come up of interest. But there's one major difference, which is, Monopoly is the best-selling game, and I'm one of the least watched reviewers. But, for a moment there, I had my sense of glory of being like Monopoly. I have a top hat, if that counts, and I can get my mustache and I'll dye it white and everything. All right, up it goes.